In this video, I'm going to show you how to do Edexcel A-Level Maths, Paper 1, Question 8 from June 2018. My name is Sunil Tanna. My details are shown on the card. I'm a tutor and author, and I'm available for one-to-one tutoring, either online or if you live locally. I live in South Buckinghamshire, England. I can also do in-person tutoring. So let's get started. This question is about a ship in a harbour where the depth of the water in the harbour varies according to a formula that we're given. The depth of water, d meters, in a harbour on a particular day is modelled by this formula. D is equal to 5 plus 2 sine 30t, and t varies between 0 and 24, where t is the number of hours after midnight. A boat enters the harbour at 6:30 a.m. and it takes 2 hours to load its cargo. The boat requires the depth of water to be at least 3.8 metres before it can leave the harbour. Question A. Find the depth of water in the harbour when the boat enters the harbour. So if it enters at 6:30 a.m, the value of t is 6.5, 6.5 hours after midnight. So we simply plug that into this formula. D is equal to 5 plus 2 sine 30 times 6.5. Now we must make sure our calculator is in degrees mode because the question gives us all angles are in degrees. We enter that in the calculator and the formula will come out to 4.48 meters, and part A is now complete. Now part B. Find, to the nearest minute, the earliest time the boat can leave the harbour. Now, we know that it can't leave until 2 hours after 6:30, so in other words, it can't leave until at least 8:30 a.m, or if we think about it in terms of t has to be greater than or equal to 8.5. Okay, that doesn't really tell us much, so we need to think about what a sine curve looks like. Now, if I draw a rough sketch of a normal sine curve, where it would look like this, where here is, let's say, x in degrees, 0 degrees would be here, 180 degrees would be there, 360 degrees would be there, and it would continue on and so on both sides. The highest value of the curve here in degree would be 1, where at 90 degrees the maximum value of sine is 1, and at 270 the minimum value of the curve is -1. Now, that would be for sine of x. Now, if I do in a different colour, we can think about how d would vary as x varies. So if we think about x being equal to 30t, 0 degrees would correspond to 0 hours after midnight. 90 degrees would correspond to 3 hours after midnight, because 3 times 30 makes 90. 180 degrees would be 6 hours after midnight, 270 would be 9 hours after midnight, and finally 360 would be 12 hours after midnight. What about the vertical range for D? Well, first of all, we add 5 to all values, so the curve is moved up by 5. So instead of being centered around 0, it will be centered around 5. The second thing is we multiply the value of sine by 2. So instead of varying between -1 and +1, it will vary between -2 and +2. Of course, -1 and between -2 and +2. And of course, -2 and +2 +5. So in other words, it will vary between 3 and 7. Now, we know that we can't leave the harbour until after 8:30, which is going to be somewhere in here. So there's 2 possible points that maybe it goes above 3.8 meters, because of course it could be already above 3.8 meters at 8:30, or if it's below that, if 8:30 is somewhere down here below 3.8, maybe at some time after 9 o'clock it will be at 3.8 meters. So we now need to solve this equation. 5 plus 2 sine 30t is equal to 3.8. Now we've already said that x is equal to 30t, so we could rewrite this as being 5 plus 2 sine x is equal to 3.8. Well, first of all, we can subtract 5. and we can also divide by 2. So sine x will be minus 0.6. 3.8 minus 5 is minus 1.2, divide by 2, minus 0.6. So we simply use inverse sine on our calculator to find what the value of x is. So x, if we do that on our calculator, comes out to minus 36.870, which is actually over here. Now, that doesn't help immediately, but we can use the shape of the sine curve to find where the solutions in this range are. Well, because sine repeats every 360, there'll be an answer somewhere up here, which will be 360 minus 36.870, which if we calculate that, it comes out to 323.130. And there'll also be an answer here, which will be 180 plus 36.870, which comes out to 216.870. So here we have x is equal to 216.870 or 323.130. Now, since we know that x is the same as 30t, t is x divided by 30. So if we use this answer and divide by 30, we find that x is 7.212, or if we use this answer and divide it by 30, we get x is 10.771. Now we know that x has to be more than 8.5 because the boat can't leave the harbour until at least 8:30 a.m. So this value here is too small and we reject it. So since t is greater than or equal to 8.5, we now know that t is 10.771. Now that's 10 hours and 0.771 of an hour. So we need to convert the 0.771 of an hour into minutes if we want the time in hours and minutes. So we do 0.771 times 60, which gives us 46 minutes. So the time it can leave the harbour is 10 hours and 46 minutes after midnight, or 10:46 a.m. And that's the question complete.